Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers here at SF DocFest. As you might have heard, we are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year of bringing some of the coolest, most interesting documentaries from around the world to here in the Bay Area. And it's just, when you're out kind of looking for films, it's exciting to see what comes from submissions and what films filmmakers recommend and like what other festivals. And this really wonderful documentary you just saw, Celtic Utopia, heard about it at some festivals, and I was like, that sounds like a great film. I want to check it out. And it was. And so we're glad everything worked out to have it as part of SF Doc Fest. And we're lucky enough to have Lars here. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy that you choose it and that I'm able to be here. I'm also here representing the film for the two of us. We are two directors, me and Dennis Harvey.
Very cool. Well, I know something the audiences often wonder is like, how do filmmakers come up with ideas for their projects? So what was the catalyst for you to decide that you wanted to kind of take this leap of faith and make the film?
Uh, this film actually was born out of the conversations me and Dennis had over the lunch table. We worked at the same office, and Dennis had recently moved to Sweden from Ireland, and he was sharing new interesting music to me. And I had before this I had made another film called Fonko about it takes place in Africa, and it talks about post-colonial issues, music, and colonialism and the liberation, and how where all that meets. And then we started to talk about Ireland as why don't think of Ireland in a similar way as you do with other former colonies? Is it
Mm,
because Western European country and it looks so similar? But so we wanted to approach Ireland in with those glasses on, kind of.
that's cool. As a filmmaker, what do you think some of the biggest challenges of making a documentary that relates to music in the sense that, with music, there are people that are familiar with it and might already be fans. But obviously, as a filmmaker, you want to reach people that might not be aware of the story. So, like, how do you navigate telling stories that kind of resonate with the fans, but also for people who are just discovering it for the first time?
Yeah, I think that kind of with trying to find that balance. I think it goes through all. It's in all filmmaking. I mean, it's not only fans or not fans of the music. It's how much do you know about the history? How can people in Ireland watch it, and how can people at the same time in the rest of the world watch it without knowing all the background? So I think you're trying to find that balance all the time. But more specifically about the music. I think these I'm not so interested in making films that are very specifically about the music. I want to find the intersection where it meets other issues, when it meets history, when it meets society. So you can tell kind of a bigger story. I mean, I love the music obviously, but it's more interesting to tell the story when you touch on something else where. And I think maybe that is also the key of trying to find people who are not only the fans, because I mean the fans maybe they might come anyhow, but then the bigger story about Ireland becoming what it is today. I mean that can attract a lot of people who are not doesn't necessarily know these bands beforehand.
Yeah, no, it's a really wonderful film in that way, in the sense that I love the kind of unwrapping of all this different kind of history and stories, with music being kind of the door with which we kind of have entered things with. Um, what what were some of the things that most kind of surprised you during the making of the film that you didn't expect?
I must say the thing that surprised me the most, I must say, was how recent everything was. I mean, I know the history. I know the I mean I know about the Magdalene laundries, the modern baby homes, and like what the church did in Ireland. But then you talk to the Mary Wallopers, and you realize that their sister was stolen by the church, and it was probably the 90s or something. I mean, it's so recent. It's so recent. Everything. I mean, they're much younger than me, and even if I know the history, I mean, you kind of feel like, I mean, maybe that's the 50s or 60s, but it's not. It's just like, and all these terrible stories. They didn't. weren't really public, many of them, until the early 2000s. So it's like things have happened so fast in Ireland, and yeah, that was definitely the biggest eye opener for me, I'd say. I mean, Dennis
Yeah.
probably knew this a bit more. He's from Ireland, of course. I'm from Sweden, so we have different perspectives on. Yeah, I mean, we come from a different. Yeah, we probably have a similar perspective, but he knows a lot more about some of these issues, of course, than I did beforehand.
Yeah, well, it seems like it kind of a nice balance too, in the sense that can each challenge each other in different ways on kind of a shared goal. Um, how did you kind of find some of the kind of protagonists and folks that you interviewed? What was that process like? And was it kind of word of mouth, like whereas you met people, or yeah, how was that involved? How was it involved in finding the folks that you interviewed
I
and
mean,
spent
we
time?
started out with, well, with the musicians we knew that were we thought would be interesting for this project. Some were pretty well known, like people from the band Lancome and the Mary Wallopers were they weren't so well known at that time, but they were becoming well known. They had some like YouTube hits at that time, uh, and then we made some interviews, and but then it was really word of mouth because the scene people really know each other in the scene, and they play with each other in like in some of them play like in three or four different bands together, and so they were like, oh, you should talk to this guy, and you should talk to him and or her, and I mean, so we kept following the leads, and then we also had some people, of course, that we were trying to catch over. We were there for maybe eight production trips, I think. So some of them we couldn't catch on the first one. So you have to make things fit with their touring schedule and everything.
Yes.
And then,
The,
of course, we made a lot more interviews than the ones we show in the film, of course. But then, yeah.
Very cool. And then, when you're, as a filmmaker, how do you often like choose your topics, in the sense of like, are they, is there this commonality of like that you just want to know more, or like and how does this kind of fit within the kind of overall repertoire of like other films that you've made? How's it similar and different?
I mean, this is my second feature-length documentary, and I think it is pretty similar. It looks very different, but thematically it's similar because the other one, Fonko, was also about. I mean, it is how people use traditional elements and put it into contemporary music, and from there the discussion goes to colonialism and what that meant for the country, the liberation, and yeah. And so, I mean, thematically, you could kind of say it's the same film, but then that was made 10 years ago. And I think this one is much more focused. We have a different kind of archive material that really speaks about the themes in another way. And you get you get much closer to the protagonists, I'd say, too. But I think the idea in itself is often a very quick thing. I mean, it's that almost instantaneous that you just realize this would be such a great thing to do. But then the curiosity comes into play. If that just you want to know more and you start to do research and you find all these interesting paths to follow and you want to meet these people and you want to learn more about this, and often, I mean, it can be like rabbit holes. Sometimes you read a lot about the founding father Eamon de Valera. We discussed Eamon de Valera so much, and his visions for Ireland and how it became such an oppressive society despite him wanted to make it kind of a utopic rural country where traditional music and tradition played such a big role. And that's, by the way, how the title came out of that discussion. And then we didn't mention him at all in the film. So I mean, sometimes this research is just for the pleasure, but probably it also informs the wider picture that you paint, even if it's not that obvious on the surface.
Yeah. That's cool. It's always interesting to kind of hear behind the scenes on things. Is it too early to ask of what your next film will be, or do you have ideas percolating around?
Uh, if it would have been Dennis, he already have two films in production. He's so productive. I'm slightly slower, uh, and but I'm working on a project on a student rising in Greece. We are in the 70s actually, and we are interviewing the people who are organizing this uh, and who are getting old now. And then there are a few other ideas that are a bit too early to share, I think.
Well, very
But
cool. It always seems like you're
another
choosing.
music one is another music documentary, but that is it's slightly problematic because it's supposed to take place in West Africa, and the situation is deteriorating in the
Mm,
countries where I want to shoot. So I'm not sure if I'd be able to do it at the moment, but.
mm. Yeah, well, and whatever you're up to, it seems like you always choose interesting ideas. And thank you again for making this film and sharing it with us, Lars.
Thank you so much for having me here, and I hope you all enjoy the film.
Yeah, most definitely. And what's great is after the live show here, there is kind of a Celtic music kind of happy hour that we're going to get a chance to have folks get a chance to enjoy. So at the Napper and Tandy. So that'll be pretty awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Thanks a lot.
thanks again, Lars. Have a great day.
You too.